Hello everyone, and welcome to my current list video of how I would rank after playing a bit of Steel Division lightly and ranked again, and also obviously casting Steel Division League, and watching a lot of games, watching a lot of discussion, how I would rank the divisions currently for 1v1 play in Steel Division 2 after the latest Vulture Makers and Task Force 45 nerfs. And as you can see, S tier is really small. As we start in S tier with only 2 divisions, and even those are just on the bottom end of S tier at the moment. I don't think there is a real high overperformer division out there. These 2 divisions there, I would say, are a bit better because they're really versatile and they don't have any major weaknesses in my eyes. And that's why I would say they're the current S tier. But the divisions in A tier all can beat them in the right matchup, on the right map, in the hands of the right player. So we start with 8th Indian, my current favorite division, as they have a really good combined arms. The only thing they lack is a support Sherman for helping them out on 2000 meter range with HE or M2 Howitzer. One of the reasons why 2nd Indian is an S tier. They might drop maybe into A tier with the M2 Howitzer, M3 Howitzer nerf. We will see with the next patch. As you can see, a lot of the divisions that will get a buff currently I rank in D tier. And that's the reason why they will get a buff. Like, they are currently underperforming heavily. Not just in my tier list, but also on the ladder. And yeah, so 8 million, really well rounded. Super good infantry. Super good artillery tab. The 140mm is underrated in 1v1. I think not enough people bring it around. Latest game of Robert in the league showed that once more, I think. And yeah, 2nd Indian had similar. They have both solid tanks with the Shermans. They have both solid anti-tank guns, especially the Indian with 17-pounder and 6-pounder guns. And both solid air tabs, and overall just really well-rounded. Good recon tabs, snipers, and the autocar here, Ranger Marauders over here. And yeah, then we go into A tier, where we have the 4 Vulture Makers. And they are not here really that much because of the Vulture Maker anymore. The Vulture Maker is still it's an infantry squad, but they have just such a well-rounded tab all around. They are a really versatile versed infantry unit as well. They just fell out of S tier because they still have to use Vulture Makers, and Vulture Makers are not the top end completely anymore. So you might be a bit thinner stretched than you were before, and that's why they have fallen to A tier, but still really good division. Tatra following as... It's kind of weird, like, the difference between Koruk and Tatra, but Tatra just does everything Koruk did in its prime, and does it really well. And Koruk doesn't do what it did in its prime anymore that well, because it doesn't have 15-point infantry spam anymore, it doesn't have a really good air tab anymore, and its cheap tanks are also underperforming compared to Tatra's Czech tanks, the Panzer 38T. So Tatra up here because really well rounded, has a lot of tools, can prepare for each map differently. So especially in League, I would say a really good division because you have a lot of choices in this division. And yeah, Task Force 45 falling up there because converted gunners, both versions still really good. The 15-point unit, the British one, really good as meat shield, and the other one still a really good damage dealer even at 25 points. And then the Nisei's on 30 points, absolutely sugar. The T70, the air tab, all helping out really well as well. The 90mm AA, just a really well-rounded division. Not quite S tier anymore because they're a bit less cost efficient and they are not the deepest deck, so you have to win early on, I would say. But still a lot of aggressive power. Yeah, first Polish, the most cost-efficient Soviet deck out there at the moment. Really solid infantry, especially as their double DP units still have SVTs as well. The IL-2s still decent planes, far away from their prime when they were in S tier, the first Polish, both when it comes to efficiency of T-34s and their IL-2s, but still both units really good. And yeah, 5th Gebirgsjäger, similar to 4th Fallschirmjäger. They're have just so many good tools around. They lost the super cost efficient mainline infantry, and their nerf to them was percentage-wise harder than the one to the vulture makers. Step from 35 to 40 points hurts a unit way less than a step from 20 to 25 points percentage-wise. So they got nerfed harder. That's why they were behind 4 vulture makers yet now in my eyes, but still really good division. 17th, similar thing. They lost a bit of versatility. They lost their super strong rush at the beginning, but the all-around combined arms is untouched, and it's still amazing. Only the lack of an off-map now hurt them a bit, so that's why they fell from S to A tier, but everything I have seen from them since the nerf is still really, really good. They just are somewhat beatable now, but A tier, as I said, obviously still amazing. Third vulture maker, similar to fourth, just a bit less cost efficient in all its tools, so it's a bit further behind, but still A tier. 97th off-map galore, so nothing to say there. Second, New Zealanders are similar to 8th Indian, just in my eyes. They have a bit weaker air tap, they have a weaker artillery tap, and the infantry is not quite as good. It's really, really good, the Obletus, but it's only 25-point units. I feel like having a 20-point unit that is really spammable is good, and I like the snipers that the Indians get to support. But in this deck, you get the support Shermans, and you also get some M10s, so it's for sure not a weak division compared to 8th. As I said, everything here is absolutely playable on every map, and it's all really good. Same goes for 6th Airborne. Maybe a division I was not quite sure where to put them, because lately I have seen them suffer. Maybe they're beat here, but their infantry is just so cost efficient still. Their air tap is still really annoying. The artillery tap is helpful, and the tank tap can be really, really good on the right map, and in the right matchup. That's the only thing that is maybe a bit more B tier than A tier in the deck, but I'd still put them in A tier because I feel like all around still just a really cost efficient division. That's mostly what makes A tier A tier. The cost efficiency across the board is what makes this division A tier. And the next division in here is my favorite division in the game currently, 3rd tier VDV, and 15 points, 8-man CQC units are just amazing, just as the air tap, and the option to make every terrain on the map, every spot on the map, favorable engagement for your CQC infantry makes them even better due to the smoke off map, due to radio mortars, 120mm radio mortars that deal a hell of a lot of damage, and so on. So 30 VDV, really, really cost efficient division, highly underrated in League in my eyes. It's a bit different to play than other divisions, but overall just one of the best spam divisions out there, one of the most interesting air taps out there, and overall just a really cool division to play in. 44th has off map, has good T-34s, has a solid infantry tap, just all around cost efficient. Did a video about them lately. 4th Alpina is the Axis form of 3rd VDV, only that it doesn't have the 15-point CQC infantry, but they have really good CQC infantry as well. They have a bit better air tap than 3rd VDV. And they have also an even better artillery tap. Instead of 120mm radio mortars, they get their 100mm howitzers with radio. And they get even better tank spam with all the cheap little Italian autocars and so on. So 4th Alpina, also an underrated division, really strong on a lot of maps, especially as they also have the best long-range AA in the game. Only one card of them, but these things really hurt the big 92mm of the Italians. 1st DFL has fallen a bit, but still up in A tier. Has still good air tap, still good support tap, still one of the best infantry taps in the game, a lot of versatile, cost-efficient units, but has fallen a bit. Yeah, still, if you have shitty AA, you will suffer against this division. So don't have shitty AA when you play 1st DFL. 26th is somewhat similar to these two divisions. It's a bit less off-map and stuff, but really nice tanks with the KVs. Kind of annoying for a lot of people to deal with, but if you know how to deal with them, they are beatable because they're slow and so on. The infantry tap, really solid. Air tap is okay. And yeah, that's why they are an A tier. Cost efficiency. Lovash, same thing. Since their infantry got buffed, really, really good infantry tab once more. Since their tank tab also is pretty cheap and has 8 damage on the Turan 2, which one-shots every light tank with a penetration. They are really good in that regard as well. Really, the Turan spam can be absolutely obnoxious, and they have just such a well-rounded division. Good off-map, solid air, and yeah, the Turan infantry push is just really hard to stop if you don't have one of the other A-tier divisions in my eyes. Now we come to B tier, starting with Syl. Syl is coming up due to the buff. They were a bit lower in before, but since they got buffed in the last patch, they are now scrapping on the A tier. Similar to 4th, they have a good radio artillery. Not quite the air power that 4th brings, but still good air tap. They don't have the G55, sadly. They have a better infantry tab maybe than 4th, because 4th only has one elite unit, the rest is just mediocre. Still has quite a lot of good choices in the infantry tab. And it has Shermans. It doesn't have a lot of Shermans, but it has Shermans. And all of this makes it B tier. Doesn't have the recon infantry with radio though. So getting radios is a bit harder for your artillery and so on. So yeah, that's why I rank it below 4th. But overall, a really versatile division, just not quite the level of cost efficiency as the B tier. Same goes for First Plindata. They were A tier for sure before the infantry got nerfed slightly, or quite hard, from 20 to 25 points, the Auto Plindata. And yeah, since then they are now in B tier. Still good tabs all around, but just not quite the cost efficiency anymore. Then 43rd Reserve, similar thing. They are a well-rounded division. They just relied a bit too heavy on Stravnikis, which are not that cheap to come around. And they lack a bit of air. Then a division I haven't played much myself, and that might be one of the hottest topics here. Task Force Butler. I would say they are just slightly worse than DFL due to their face locks, but overall it's a really strong division as well. Maybe even a bit easier air thanks to the Hellcat fighter, which is really good. But yeah, as I said, haven't played them much myself. Have played a lot against them. Yeah, maybe you disagree here. One for sure that I'm not 100% sure about. Maybe could be a bit lower in B tier. 26. Really one of the best tank divisions for the Germans out there. A lot of good options, including the lovely Italian Stux. And yeah, all around good support. All around good support. Good air. The big 88mm on the truck can be really annoying and so on. So absolutely lovely division. 6th, South African, relying heavily on their Sherman 2As. The thing that holds them in B tier is that their Commonwealth rifles are not as amazing as the ones you get in the New Zealanders or the 8th Indian. So that's why they're here. Shermans and so on, still really good. Meanwhile, here, the Cavalry Motorizata might be further up in B tier. They lack a bit on 2000 meter range lately, and their air isn't as easy to bring through anymore since AA buff. So their infantry has to do more work. The infantry is still good, but we got a lot of other good infantry units around, so I feel like they have fallen off slightly since their prime. As they also got a couple of slight nerfs, but Regidas and so on still keep the Romanians up. They're competitive. So B tier, not too bad. Yeah. Then 21st Panzer, being here for everything but King Tigers. King Tigers in 1v1, not that amazing. You can maybe have one in your deck for some like niche scenarios. For some niche maps, they can be good. But really, the well-roundedness of all the other stuffs in this division is nice. You have 222s, you have Shermans, you have Panzer IVs, you have a good air tap, you have solid artillery options. Your infantry tab is workable. It's not amazing. That's why it's B tier. Infantry, if it would be better, would put it in A tier. But yeah, now we go to the division that is the exact opposite. 20F Jäger, elite infantry, still a good air tap, but the rest is not as amazing. So that's why 20F Jäger is here. Not the amazing, it's like well-rounded tank, no 20mm autocannons, and stuff like that. So that's why 28 Vega is in B tier, not in A tier. Still a really fun division to play around if you like infantry combat, and on a map like Cell, absolutely obnoxious. Like B tier overall is all having some weaknesses on specific maps, but overall still being well-rounded divisions that just have like one weakness, for example, or like being just that slightly bit off in cost efficiency across the board. A reason for 84th being a B tier. It's just not quite as cost efficient and as some of the other higher up Soviet divisions, but still pretty decent, well-rounded division. Same for 20th Panzer. Lacking a bit in the infantry department, lacking the 20mm autocannons. That's the biggest issue of 20th Panzer. You don't get any autocannons. Air tap being okay. You have good AA with Flak 43s. Yeah. On the other side, Nordland having all around good infantry, but the tank tab is a bit cost inefficient. The air tab is good with the Arados, but you like some cheaper options there as well. So it's a bit expensive on the expensive side as well for the combat overall, but has all the tools. That's the thing. That's why it's in B tier. It has all the tools. 7th mechanized, having a lot of the tools as well. Just not that amazing currently in the infantry department. Same 9th, having no late game. Like being all around solid in the early game, still having the amazing Sherman cheap planes plus cheap infantry combination that can push everyone off the board if you keep trading, if you keep the enemy low in his combined arms. But if the enemy can get up his combined arms, most combined arms formations will beat you in the late game because you just don't have the last level up in this division. You don't get elite artillery, you don't get another heavier tank like no T-34-85s or no super elite infantry that would bring you up to the next stage, that would allow you to evolve over the battle. So you stay with the same combined arms you have at the beginning, and it's really good in the beginning, and it's really good if you can keep the enemy from evolving, because it's one of the most cost-efficient combined arms there is. But if the enemy can get there, his combined arms will beat yours. So that's the problem with 9th. That's why they're in B tier. Still, as I said, if you can keep the enemy trading with the enemy one by one, at some moment you will find a weakness to exploit with your cheap Shermans and your infantry. That is also pretty cheap. Hermann Göring, really good division, similar to Nordland, brings all the tools, just all the tools being slightly more expensive than up here. Really, that's Hermann Göring. If you want to play an Axis division to learn how to play Axis, Hermann Göring is a good point to start. Nordland and Hermann Göring really having a lot of the tools that makes the German strong, and just not being quite up there. Like, and I feel like you want to learn the game with B tier divisions overall. It's shows you how you can get exploited in some of your weaknesses. It shows you how the game really should work in general, and maybe also trying to find a way of how to win, how to make specific things work, and so on. If you're a newer player, I always would recommend focusing more on B tier division, and then if you're lucky, your division gets buffed. Yeah, A tier, like learning the game of S tier and A tier divisions makes it harder for you later to go to B tier. I would always recommend learning it the other way around. Not starting with D tier. Learning with D tier is just pure masochism, but yeah, B tier division is where I would recommend you to go. Now we go to the Polish, and they are a bit less cost efficient than 9th, but they have a bit better combined arms. They still don't have the full-on end game combined arms, as their Sexton artillery pieces, for example, are a bit too shitty, and Fireflies get you only so far, but so that's the difference here. They have a bit weaker early on combined arms for a bit better late game combined arms. Quite similar in power level overall, I would say. Yeah, still a lot of fun units. The Cromwells, the Fireflies. Solid Polish infantry, not that many of them though, sadly. And yeah, the air tab with Hurricanes also decent, but not amazing. Then we come to a division that has fallen a bit off grace. 3rd Guards Tank Corps. Still has Shermans, has IS-2s, has an okay infantry tab, has an okay air tab and AA tab. But yeah, just not that cost efficient anymore, just not that card efficient anymore, because they got nerfed over the years quite heavily. And yeah, Soviets currently not being in favor doesn't help them. 78th Sturm is maybe the one that struggles the most of all the B tier divisions with cost efficiency, but has a lot of high power level units and a really nice combined arms. The IJ-33, Nashorn Flak 41 combo is just a really, really strong combined arms. So it's one of the divisions that you want to kind of play balanced, or even if you play Maverick, play it more defensive and just get to your combined arms. And if you get to your combined arms, it's one of the hardest combined arms to beat. You have really, really, really strong infantry with the Schützen. You have insanely strong tank destroyers on 2000 meter range that are quite cost efficient with the Nashorn. You have one of the best support guns with the IG-33, and you have a really solid AA tap as well. So overall, just an absolutely beast of cost efficient of combined arms, but not quite of cost efficiency. So if the enemy forces you to trade at the beginning, your combined arms can crumble a bit. If it's a low force game on the board, you might have some weaknesses that the enemy can exploit, and that's why they are in B tier. Third mech, once more a division that is pretty similar to 9th. Shermans and cost-efficient infantry and somewhat worse air than 9th, but a bit cheaper air. And that's what third mech does. It also doesn't have the level up to the final combined arms, which is keeping them back. Then Toulon is kind of similar to 78th, in that it has a lot of stuff. It has a bit better infantry, a bit cheaper infantry, but it lacks the solid tanks that, and the Stooks and the Nashorns that you get in 78th. So that's why Toulon is here. Still can be quite nasty to deal with, as they have quite interesting infantry options. They have insanely good AA type, and also solid artillery and solid air tap, keeping Toulon around here. Yeah, now C tier is filled with a lot of divisions that are usable in some scenarios, but overall just often are worse versions of a division that we already saw higher up. But they're all playable. Starting with Panzari Divisione. A division that just lacks the numbers of all the cool tools that it brings. Like, it brings good AA options, it brings solid tanks. It has the Landswerk AA piece that is now renamed. That is one of the best AA pieces in the game. And it has a lot of cool tanks, but it only has one card of each of these. Its infantry has your carries, but it lacks a bit of long-range MG power. Like, overall, long-range MGs are a bit lackluster, so your T-26s have to help you out there a bit, but they just don't do that effectively. Yeah, it's just a bit too exploitable. If you punch a hole into one of their sectors, they can't fill it because they don't have any numbers to refill that hole. If you beat their AA, they get exploitable by air. If you kill their couple of long-range infantry, your long-range infantry can bully their other infantry from the range. If you beat their couple of heavier tanks, the T-34-85s, then you can bully them from afar with tanks and so on. So that's why Panzari is in C. It has all the tools, but it lacks the numbers, and it just lacks that one unit that elevates it higher. First Waltermaker is a pretty cost-inefficient division now, and it sucks at beating medium tanks. And that's a reoccurring thing that will come up more and more. It still has Fallschirmjägers, it still has a solid air tap. Just beating medium tanks and 20mm autocannon cards, especially, is really tough for this division. So that's why it's in here, because that's those are two tools that the upper echelon divisions use a lot. So if you can't deal with them, you automatically are in C tier at best. 5th SS, Viking. Yeah, it's a decent division. It has most of the tools, but they're really cost inefficient here. It just doesn't have much going for it when it comes to anything special, and that's why it's here. Groß Deutschland, similar thing. It's basically the same thing. It has a bit more infantry, but the infantry also has Panzergrenadiers all over the board that are a bit cost inefficient. It has some nice, interesting half-tracks options and so on, but they're currently also not that amazing. One of them will get buffed, then we might see them back in B tier. But yeah, Tartalek has solid infantry, but it's a bit exploitable with medium tanks and so on as well. So yeah, that's why Tartalek is here. It has a good off-map, it has good solid infantry. The infantry is just not having that push power that it has on Lovash, because it's not quite as numerous, it doesn't quite have the damage output. So that's why Tartalek is in C tier. Then third US Armored has the other problem with the other big thing that comes up a lot in the upper echelons. It can deal with 20mm autocannons, it can deal with medium tanks due to its Sherman 76s, due to its absolute beasts in the jumbos. But what it can't deal with is infantry. Cheap, affordable mass infantry is really hard to deal with third. And you are also a bit cost inefficient in all your stuff. So that's why these are here. Same for second blinde. Yeah, they have bomber spam, they have the M8 spam, but currently M8s are not that amazing. So overall, solid division, but just sucks at dealing with infantry spam. And also kind of struggles with heavier tanks. Because both of these divisions, the highest penetration power any of their anti-tank or tank weapons has is 130mm. So against Tigers and bigger, they kind of struggle. 14th Infantry, a division I really like currently, but it just only has, it's just a mediocre division when it comes all around. It has a similar problem to Panzeri Divisione in that it has a lot of options, but all the options are limited in numbers. So you only get one card of Begleit Grenadiers, only one card of Begleit Pioneers, only a couple of cards of Tigers, only a couple of cards of Stux, and so on and so on. And the biggest issue of them and a lot of other German divisions up to come is that they rely on flak feelings as AA and 20mm as AA, and flak feelings currently just suck. So they are exploitable in the air. They still have a bit better, pretty good combined arms with infantry and their 3 options of tanks. Like, that's basically the triumvirate of German tanks you want. They have Tigers, they have Stokes, and they have some cheap thing with 20mm, in their case, Panzer II Luxus, which you can use, and which basically covers all the scenarios you need German tanks for. So like the Stuk stopping medium tanks, the 20mm helping out your infantry, and the Tiger being a big boy to push with. So yeah, at least they have that covered, and their infantry also covers everything, but as I said, they run out of numbers there because a lot of units there are one card only. Yeah, next thing, Panzerlehr. The infantry is now really cool with the Panzerschreck Panzer Grenadiers, but you are limited to only them, basically. They don't have any other really good infantry options. Tank tab is also only mediocre. Panthers and Panzer IV is not really cutting it. Tigers, yeah, it's just not the cool combined arms you want. You have some 20mm, you have some Pumas that help you out. That's why they're in C tier. AA and air tab also pretty good, but yeah, you're just not quite cost efficient enough for everything. It's basically the same issue as back in Steel Vision Normandy, just that you now can at least pick a better income for them. So that's why they're not in D tier, but in C tier, because you still have a lot of good tools, and if you can get up to the combined arms, enemy might start to struggle, but issue is ever getting there. 7th Estonian, a division that I played a lot lately, and they're decent. They just lack a bit of anti-tank guns, actually. Something that other divisions usually don't struggle with. Like, if one thing that you get often, and even in the D tier division, is a K option of anti-tank guns, but they don't have Sys 2 guns and so on, so anti-tank guns are a bit of a problem here. And their infantry is solid, but not super amazing. They will get really strong, though, with the next buff, as their Strelky SVT version. They have 2 cards of those. So they will have two really cost-effective cards at that point, and they might get up with that. Overall, a really nice division to play around, but not quite scraping it. Like, has solid combined arms, but just having some holes. Yeah, that's why they are in C tier. Turina, similar thing. Also a bit card inefficient. Were nerfed back in the day. Were never buffed. Have some really weird slot costs. And they are kind of similar to actually 9th and 3rd mech in that they have not the best level up in their combined arms later on. Like, they have a lot of solid options at the beginning, but not as good as 3rd in my eyes. as they don't have Shermans, and but they just don't have the good late game. So all you have to do against Furina usually is holding on. And then you can beat them later, as they only have T-34s, basically. So, and the 76 version of those, mostly. So, yeah, Furina struggling a bit there, not having any shiny thing going for them. You have Recon Bomber spam, but that's not really what you want to rely on too heavily. 126, just a bit too exploitable. Solid infantry tab, but their heavier tank options come in a bit too late. Until then, you struggle hard. Yeah, just having a bit too glaring weaknesses. They have a good air tab, they have a good infantry tab, they have a solid AT tab as well, but the infantry also is not completely top notch. Like, it's mostly CQC based. You don't have quite enough long range firepower in the infantry tab either, so that's why they are in C tier. They have good artillery, good air, solid infantry, but their tank tab and their long range infantry let them down. 15 Scots, just a bit too slow at the moment, and Commonwealth rifles lack one more unit that helps them out with damage. So Commonwealth rifles currently not quite competitive if you don't have anything to follow them up with support as a support weapon. So yeah, the Humbers and stuff are nice. They will get 2 buffs. The AEC will get more numerous, so you have one more mobile option that is a bit more viable, and you also get the Typhoon AT back, so you have something to strike heavier tanks with. And against medium tanks, you're pretty well covered with the Churchills. Churchill's still really good against medium tanks, but yeah, you just currently struggle a bit too much with heavy tanks. You struggle a bit too much against really cost-efficient infantry. Stopping high DPS infantry is not that easy in this deck, as you don't have any support guns or stuff like this. No radio mortars in the Commonwealth divisions either. Something that they like compared to the US. So, yeah. Basically, same thing for 3rd Canadian. Basically, exactly the same issues here. Both having solid anti-tank options with 17 pounders and so on. But, yeah, lacking a bit of push power currently as well. And air taps are decent, but not amazing. 184th. Yeah, just slightly cost inefficient. Haven't played them too much lately. Yeah, relying on big tanks. AA still okay, but not amazing, and so on. So 184th in C tier as well. 12 S, basically like Lair, just that they don't have the funny Panzerschreck Panzergrenadiers. They have no Panzergrenadiers. Yeah, just lacking a bit in cost efficiency as well, having to rely on Panthers and so on. Never fun, as the Germans. Munte, if you survive A phase in a good position, everything is fine in Munte. Question is, will you ever do that? And it's really tough to do so, because their tanks and stuff is all phase locked. And the infantry in A phase is not that amazing. The AT is okay, infantry is okay, but it's not amazing. And so you might get pushed quite hard. The Tenuti, since the Molotov nerf, not that amazing as an infantry unit anymore, and so on. So yeah. Pityukina, similar problems to Turina, and yeah, just the special infantry of theirs currently, the Stroke DT, is not that amazing. Pityukina having okay combined arms, not being the most card efficient deck though, not being like not having nothing special going for it. That's why Pityukina is here. With the Stroke DT buff, they should get a bit better. At least they have one really competitive CQC unit then once more. Or for the first time. So really looking forward to that. Yeah, next thing, Bitsuk logo. Yeah, infantry tab is just shit. That's why they are here. 60th Panther, same thing. Infantry tab is shit. The rest is a bit too cost inefficient. 25th Panzer Grenadier. Tank tab is shit. Air AA is absolute garbage. That's why they are here. 5th Panzer. All around solid division. Nothing special. Everything slightly cost inefficient. 116th. Exactly the same thing. Yeah, plus they have less infantry. So yeah, even your not that cost inefficient efficient infantry you also don't have that many of. But with the buff, with the Ersatz Pioneers coming, and with the one more infantry slot, 160 should go up a bit, as they also have mobile wagons and so on. So, yeah, they are pretty solid, but at that point, but currently just not. 10th, exactly same issue. As with the 2 Panzer divisions just said before. 358. AA is okay now. That's why they're in C tier, not in D tier. But yeah, they have a really good infantry unit with the Krupa. But I don't know, I still don't feel them. And 29th might be one of the most ignored division. 29th and 2nd Guards tank corps, or tank corps. These two got nerfed back in the day when Soviet tanks were OP and never got buffed back up, so they still have really horrible slots, still have pretty mediocre infantry tabs, and yeah, the tank tabs are just not that good anymore, so both of them are here for that reason. Skijäger, a lot of unicorn units, and their baseline infantry is just not that amazing for what it should be. It's just like you get basic grenadiers as your standard infantry, and yeah, grenadiers not that amazing. And the MP44 version of the Skijäger also only in the okayish part, not on the amazing part. KV2 is a nice, like your support part is okay, but you don't get high enough numbers of anything there. And your AA is also kind of lackluster. It's just like in a lot of German divisions down here. Harteneck being the same pace, solid stuff all around, similar to 14th in their tank tab, as they also have Stokes and 20mm light tank, and then Tigers. Their infantry, I would say, is slightly weaker, even though they have the Hungarians, and their AA is even worse. AA and air in this division is kind of horrible, so that's why they're in D tier. Rama Varpana, just not having good enough long-range tools, so they're on most maps really shitty, not having enough long-range infantry, not having enough long-range anti-tank, and since the AA buff, they can't even rely on their air tab anymore that much, because a lot of their air has bad resilience, so it gets shut down by AA. So that's why Reima is here. 122nd and 352nd are here because they don't have push power currently. Drive maybe a bit more because they have some special infantry, but they're pretty cost inefficient. Yeah, they only have Stokes and a lot of defensive weapons, but getting ground back with these divisions is just so insanely hard, because they just don't have any aggressive infantry, any aggressive tanks, any good air to do so, and the artillery tabs are only decent. So once you lose ground, you have to take it back with grenadiers, and that's just not fun. Kurik, just super trash in all its tabs, but tank tab maybe currently. Infantry, SS Shupos, one of the most horrible infantry units in the game currently for 20 points. 10 men hit only. Shitty MG, shitty SMG, shitty rifles. Disheartened. For 20 points, just not playable. For 15 it would be OP again though, so you can't really do that. Shupos would just go completely through the roof again, because you could just spam them all over the board. And yeah, so no clue how to fix them. Air tab is still okayish, but not amazing. Any good air player or AA player can stop them. Strachwitz, just somehow super cost inefficient and everywhere, and I don't know why. Like Strachwitz just feels really underperforming. MGB, being an air reliant division that doesn't have AA to help out your air and A phase, is kind of shit. You obviously have the weakness of not having any armored vehicles in A or C phase. You only get them in B. You're not getting that many in B. Your infantry is decent, and your air tab is decent, but if the enemy has AA plus fighters, your air tab gets nullified in A, and it makes it really hard to do anything with them in A. And so the buff of them giving them an AA piece should help them a lot. They also have a lot of infantry units that get buffed in their deck, so that might help as well. Bitzog logo, same as Turina and Third Mechanized, just in worse, because they have even worse slot availability. So if your your mediocre combined arms doesn't break through an A, you just run out of stuff so quickly. that it's really hard to play this deck. 20th Pence Grenadier just running out of infantry, and everything else is only like also all kind of cost inefficient. Armia Kryova, shitty AA, mediocre AT, having okay infantry, but that doesn't help you. 50-second Sicherungs, everything trash, and parking, no infantry whatsoever, and low numbers on tanks as well. So yeah, and your support equipment in both decks is not good enough. So that's my tier list. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I would like to see yours. I will link down below option where you can do your own tier list. And yeah, let me know what you think of my tier list. What is wrong, what is right, and where do you think everything will go with the next patch. So see you then. Bye bye.